Well, hello, guys and gals. Thank you for listening and watching to another Broken English podcast. I am Bola Omadara,
And I'm,
and is
well, I've already started to interrupt, so I'm just going to say, I'm
Oh,
Hugo.
focus, right, folks.
We'll polish it off. We're just gonna introduce like a clip or a soundbite of us saying this, so that it doesn't seem like we overlap, because
we'll get
we're
it right
professional
one day.
in every manner.
One day we'll be professional. One day.
And speaking of professional conduct, Bola and I were just talking about this thing called rap music, and he was telling me all about how he's a very big fan of Bizzy Bone and Bone Thugs and Harmony. And by the way,
This is something that's missing in our lives. Bone Thugs and Harmony, especially Bizzy Bone.
well, here's the thing. If Bizzy Bone ends up listening to this or watching this or anything like that, we had a conversation about 15 years ago. Maybe it was 14 years ago. It was, I think, 2005, 2006. You're very nice. Maybe a little strange, but you were nice.
You need to be that kind of brilliant artist. You have to be a little bit strange.
I don't know if you have to.
I mean, when you write a song about money in a Ziploc bag, and you find the art and the appreciation and stuff like that, you have to be a genius.
So moving on. Nevertheless,
One of the most underrated hip hop songs ever.
So there's this article, which by the time you guys end up hearing this, it might be it's probably going to be a couple of weeks from now, so this will be old news. But I've just read this, and Bola, I'm sure you haven't heard this, but the UK is to offer Hollywood actors and crew exemption from quarantine rules in order to get blockbusters and stuff filming again. Now, what it is the UK government is to exempt some leading US actors such as Tom Cruise and crew from its 14-day travel quarantine to allow Hollywood blockbusters to resume production as soon as possible. What are your thoughts on that? And the argument, just before you get into it, the argument that they are putting is because of the fact that when you are on a film set, it is such an isolated bubble whereby you don't have much opportunity of people interacting with the outside world per se, unless they choose to, that they're sort of saying, well, in order to get business flowing again and in order to get this going as it should be again, we're going to knock open the doors there. With the US originally having the 14-day rule with regards to travel to the UK, they're going to be like, nah, if you're a big name Hollywood actor, you and your entourage, we're going to waive that.
Right. I don't know how I feel about that. I get it in one level. It's an economic thing.
Yes.
I honestly, I'm kind of I'm kind of refraining from speaking from a gut reaction, because what can I say about this exactly?
Yeah, fair enough.
Not to be cheeky, but it's like, what can I say about this exactly? There's always been exemptions for certain kinds of people in all of this, right?
Right, and I mean, from an equality stance, it is not fair because of the fact that every human being should be considered the same, especially in regards to the potential of spreading disease. However, these names that are spearheading these projects are worth so much to so many that, again, it harkens back to your previous conversation about how the virus will impact more than just ordinary life in one regard. But without these names, you don't have the film happening.
Yeah.
Because the film can't be banked. And if it can't be bankrolled, then it's not going to occur.
I'm just saying, like I said, I don't like to speak on these things until I realize, I know all the variables. But to me, it's like, if this can offset economic damage,
Right.
and be very little of a public health issue, I don't see the problem. But like I said, I'm only speaking from my limited vantage point here.
Right.
There's probably more to it that you need to digest.
And by the way, just so everyone's clear, with Bola sneezing now, he will be quarantined for a further 14 days. He will not be leaving his house.
No, I'm not gonna get a Tom Cruise exemption to go to the UK or anything.
No, not yet, not yet. Few years, you'll get the exemptions you need.
It's probably something else that I've caught here. It's probably tuberculosis or smallpox. It's probably not corona. Out here, I'm more likely to get those two. So it's all right, folks.
I mean,
all good.
I don't know what to respond to that with.
Okay, it's just my own personal battle.
Your plight.
We'll talk about it in the next podcast. But anyways, going back to this news. It's honestly, there's a reaction of me who goes, oh, these Hollywood people and their special status and celebrity, yada yada yada. I get that point, but it's an economic thing, right?
Yeah, and with it being that, it sort of makes it hard to argue with, on the grounds of it will open up so much in terms of commerce.
Well, and at the same time, it's what was I going to say? I mean, the whole travel thing, I've been really apprehensive about. I get it. Obviously, I get it. You have to. So I don't know if anybody was watching the previous podcast, but remember when I warned you about my neighbor? Yeah. So that might come up in the podcast. So please don't freak out. It's normal if you hear any rustling in the background. But like I was saying, travel is just one of those things you have to be cautious of, right? Because of the mass influx of people. But if you just have like a small isolated bunch of people for economic reasons, right? And I can only think of this as economic, right? Then I get it.
Right, and I do too. What can you really say?
I don't know what film were they making there anyways.
I think it was Mission Impossible 7.
Holy smokes.
So
maybe, you know what, I think I might want to backtrack.
Nah, the Mission Impossible was great. They're great.
I think I should backtrack on that.
No, we love Mission Impossible. That's that.
We love Mission Impossible.
So what I also wanted to bring up was the blurred lines that seem to they've existed since fiction has really come to become an art, but they seem to be getting more and more hate filled. I was reading an article today, and again, this kind of shows our audience. We don't always record it on one day, but if it's a podcast, you may be listening to this many, many months afterwards, or years, or whatever. But there's this voiceover actress named Laura Bailey. Laura Bailey plays a character in the video game The Last of Us 2. Have you ever played The Last of Us, Bola?
No, I'm kicking myself for missing out on it. I haven't had a console in a while, and I just been seeing The Last of Us for the last couple of months, and I'm like, man, I missed out.
So The Last of Us, the first game, was superb.
Yeah, I've heard it, and I've seen clips of it. It looks like a really great game.
I think it first was on the PS3, and then I got it on the PS4 when they did a remastered version, and the sequel's just come out, which has had a lot of mixed reviews.
Yeah, there's controversy over that too.
Right. But the thing about the game is it's such a well-told tale. I mean, I remember you referencing Metal Gear and how much you like those.
Which I'm currently playing right now.
Nice. But The Last of Us was, it was the epitome of like The Walking Dead or something like that, brought into a really involved game. So the game was done exceptionally well. I mean, the story was told brilliantly. There were unexpected twists and turns. The soundtrack was amazing. I mean, we're talking about a real fucking cinematic experience. And so, gained a massive following. It's now going to become an HBO TV show.
Wasn't it a movie?
No. but they're going to make an HBO show out of it. They'd spoken about making it a film, but they've now spiraled it into becoming a show. But then you have this particular scenario that I'm talking about, which is this voiceover actress plays a character in the second game. Now, I haven't played the second game, and I'm not going to be giving away any spoilers because I deliberately avoided reading them myself. But as a result of her role as a voiceover actress reading a script in the sequel, she has received death threats, she's received hatred and vitriol, acting as if the character is not the character, acting as if somehow this actor, this reader, has some sort of a controlling stake, and it baffles me, the blurred lines between actors and their roles and the way the public perceive them.
What was she getting death threats for?
Apparently the character does some stuff within the game which sends the tale in a certain direction, etc., etc. So there are people threatening her life because of what, quote unquote, she did, but she's literally just a narrator.
Yeah, she's just. Sorry, I must have missed all of that. It's so you have a group of people who are sending her death threats because.
Apparently, it's a pretty comprehensive one as well. Like a pretty comprehensive amount of people doing this.
I would imagine there's always going to be a certain. There's always going to, especially with something that big and has a big fan base, there's just going to be a certain percentage of kooky people that are in the extreme spectrum of things.
Right.
But what are your thoughts on the way that the public perceive actors and the way that public perceive performers in terms of the way they respond with such delusion?
I think the way we perceive actors and actresses it's pretty warped. Like and speaking as somebody who loves the art itself, right? But it's turned into something of a idolizing of another human being for very questionable reasons.
Right.
Our perceptions of them are pretty warped. It's like there's some sort of authority figure or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of a sudden, because this person, I don't know why, it's a weird psychological thing where because these people are on this screen and they're there, that they somehow are these larger than life figures or these almost divine entities that you have to bow down to and worship. I think it's a pretty bizarre spectacle.
It's always been something that struck me as extremely odd when people can't seem to just really rationalize the truth is it's just another person. They go through everything you go through. They happen to have had the good fortune to be able to be paid a lot to read words and emulate feelings.
I think so I don't want to like I said, I don't want to disparage what they do, but it's just what the level of attention that we give to them, it just seems out of proportion, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've acted, I've acted, it's great.
I get the I appreciate the art and the act, especially the ones that like Leonardo DiCaprio, I think is, like, for example, is a brilliant actor, right?
Well, he had the privilege of meeting me, so he's gotten, bucket list type stuff. He's managed that.
I'm pretty sure his career was just did a 180 at that point, and that's when things just started going up after he met you. I know that.
I'm not going to take the credit.
You don't have to, but we do have on record that did happen. That being said, it's like he is, after all, at the end of the day, just another human being.
Precisely.
Right, and the level of attention that we've given to these people is pretty bizarre to me. Mm-hmm. Among other types of people that we've given attention to. But in regards to this actress getting death threats. It's just it's kind of stupid. If you're gonna send death threats to the producers, the writers of the film. She's just reading a script. She has nothing to do with the story. She's just a
It's just
mouthpiece for somebody else's words.
And I mean, it just puzzles me how people can have in front of their face, for example, a title card at the beginning of a film saying, or a game, even games have this, written by.
Right.
And then not go, was this written? Yeah. Is this fiction? Yeah. Voiceover actor credit to her, actor credit to him, etc. It's a clear delineation of what it is, and then to turn around and send death threats because of the way a story played out. Like, she didn't have any role within that. She didn't go, oh, okay, well, I think the character should do this or do that. And if she did, it was just input that they did or didn't accept.
So they're imagining she's just like in there in the voiceover studio and going, you know what? I'm gonna just change this whole scene here. You know what? This whole second act. I'm not.
Nah, it doesn't work for me.
Right here. I don't know. I don't know if it's me. Does it seem like? I don't know if it's me or does it seem like people seem to be getting more and more insane with their opinions and the things they put their passion into. Because like I said, I really wish I caught on to the Last of Us when it first came out, so I have more of a better understanding of it. I'm just literally jumping into that whole series in this year. I think I've only even heard of it this year. I checked the reviews the other day. I was going through the reviews on YouTube the other day, and half of them were insane. I mean, it was just like I couldn't watch most of them because it was just. I know you have a strong opinion, but for me, it was just most of them were unwatchable because I couldn't find somebody any reviewer that was speaking from a calm, clear place. It was almost as if, the government broke into their house and, violated their, like just violated everything, violated every aspect of their lives and their family or something like that, and burned the house down and whatever. It just seemed like it was there's just this level of extremism. It seems like there's a level of extremism that tinges everything these days, but like I said, I just couldn't watch most of them because they were just. It was just like a rabid dog chewing on a corpse.
I think what's really hard to rationalize is just both you and I write, both you and I get involved with these things. And I've told you before, and I'll tell our audience as well, I don't write for our audience. I don't care what you think. I'm writing it because I'm deciding to create some art. And I do hope that it will be enjoyed. I do hope that it will be entertaining. But there isn't a motive behind it in terms of I'm not going to try and sway someone politically or with any sort of view. These are characters in a world I've created. I haven't created it to appease and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And people attribute to something that is written a level of scrutiny that they wouldn't in just an anecdotal story from their friend. So if I said to you, oh, Bola, this happened, that happened, da 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 da, you're not going to take the same level of scrutiny that you will if you read it or if you watch it. If you watch it, you'll just be like, oh, no, shouldn't have done that because that character wouldn't have done that, etc. It's just fiction. That's it.
People do get attention. We've seen this. Are you a Star Wars fan? Are you a Star Wars fan?
I'm not. I mean, I'm not familiar enough with the world.
I mean, I know of it. I've watched all the movies and I'm familiar with it, but I'm not. I wouldn't call myself, a fanatic. I'm just not that type of person when it comes to that film. But I've seen those people, and it's almost like watching, a religious extremist state their opinion. I'm not being, and I'm not. That's not hyperbole.
No, I understand.
I've seen it. That's just like I understand that this is a world and the story that you love, but you're not being rational. You're not being rational here, right?
Right.
Because the level of attachment that you have to it is unhealthy.
And there's also the idea that anything that's written with enough breadth and enough depth, the author tends to lose sight of it. So, for example, if you've written 20 volumes or something, you might not remember that character 1 happened to actually be having a gold sign on his lapel, or happened to have the pocket watch in his right pocket in episode 25.
Some things will get lost at that certain point, right?
But there are people that scrutinize things to the degree, no.
Yeah.
He always has it in the right pocket. You put it in the left. You don't give a shit about this story. You're an asshole. Why have you done this?
I get it. I understand. I do get it. There are some things that are near and dear to me, and maybe in the past I've reacted in a certain way. When, for example, if I hear there's a remake being made of it, or they're doing this and that with it, and you've seen a lot of this stuff happen recently, especially with remakes and reboots, right? Where somebody's ethnicity's changed, or the gender's changed, or something like that, and there's this violent reaction to it. I remember one of the best comments I saw on a Star Wars clip was on YouTube. I believe it's like, nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans, and it just that comment was rung so true. It just resonated with me a lot, because it's like you can't please, and you just doesn't seem like you can please those people too.
Right.
It's like they just hate everything that's being done with the series, right? Even from the original creator of it.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of flack that George Lucas received on it.
I don't know. It's like, I kind of ask her, so what do you folks want?
I think what they want is kind of like the argument with an album, or with a comedy stand-up special, etc. People see a certain caliber, people see a certain quality,
and they always harken back.
No. It has to be has to resemble the way you made me feel here. It has to resemble the vibe you created here, etc. What was it? There was a Jay-Z quote on to the next one. Yeah, it was on to the next one.
The Story of OJ was a great song, by the way.
That was, but that's kind of a tangent.
I listened to that last night, by the way. It's such a great.
That is, I really like 444. But on to the next one, he's basically going, if you want my old shit, buy my old album.
I kind of get it, because it's like me back in the day when I was incensed. Like, anything after Terminator 2, I would just make my blood rise, right? I get it. You know, it's something that it's a series, it's a world, it's a movie, it's a characters that you just love, and then you see it one film after another, like, ugh. It's hard for me to say because I'm, like I said, I'm not a Star Wars person, right? I've adored the films here and there, right? But I'm not connected to it like that probably the person next to me in the theater is. So it's hard for me to relate to a lot of that stuff. But I don't know. It just seems like it's hard to please that crowd.
I think that I mean, the only time I actually had something similar to that in terms of disappointment was Game of Thrones, and I think.
But you weren't sending death threats, though.
That's my point.
Right. That's the point.
And I wasn't signing the petition either.
You maybe might have punched your neighbor or something like that, but you weren't sending death.
Yeah, but I don't like my neighbor, so. but no. The point being is, with Game of Thrones, I'd spent several seasons watching it, enjoying it, thinking this is the best television show that's ever come to pass.
Homeland.
Great. Homeland is really far up there. I haven't seen the most recent 2 seasons.
I think it is.
And the last 2. You've seen the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, don't tell me anything, because that's something I love as well.
Yeah.
But the thing with Game of Thrones was, and you'll notice this when you finally do see it, the first 7 seasons are stellar. Tell a lie. First 6 are stellar. 7th season's really good. Feels like it's leading up to something. and then the 8th and final season, there are hints of perfection, and then it just crashes. But once it was done, I thought, okay, number one, you've failed. In terms of the writers and the producers had failed, and I thought all of that.
I've heard.
But it would never dawn on me, A, to do what they did in terms of people signing a petition for them to redo it. That's not how art in this industry works.
It just seems like it's just so, when I see that kind of stuff, it's just embarrassing, because it's, as a human being, it's like, is this where you're, you know, there's like so many things going on in the world that are horribly horrible. And I know the amount of energy it takes to go out, create a petition and sign it and get all these people, get all these signatures. And I just think,
I mean, it was online. It was online. So.
I guess it was on. Yeah. But but the thing is, and you know the energy behind it. And it just seems like a complete waste of energy.
Yeah.
But I mean, the main thing is irrespective of that, right? So there's this petition. I didn't sign the petition. A couple of million people actually did. People were really disappointed with it. But I am certain if this voiceover actress received death threats, then you're going to have the producers and writers of this one receive the same thing. And it's a work of fiction. It's a work of fiction. It's a work of fiction that you didn't like. Sorry. Move on. It's a character twist you didn't like. Sorry, move on. You don't threaten someone's life. I mean, the only way, and I don't think I can, saying I can understand this is really doing my feelings an injustice. The only way I can sort of tolerate the idiocy behind it is if it's sort of a prepubescent, a pubescent teen doing it. But if it's anyone above the age of, 18.
I'm going to assume that, like I said, with anything like this, you're going to have a certain small percentage of people who just go overboard. And I think it just comes with the territory when it comes to things like this. It's still, don't get me wrong, it's still kind of shocking when something like that comes at you, right? But I just know in this game, the entertainment biz, these things, there's just going to be certain kinds of people that come along with it.
Right. So I'm going to do everyone that's listening to this a favor, or anyone that happens to be viewing this. And if you are, you're seeing both mine and Bola's beautiful visages, and you're welcome. Here's a little bit of an explanation. Here's how all fiction works. A human being decides on a story. They tell a story. They tell a story well for some people and not well for other people. It's not your right to threaten their life because you didn't like the story. It's not your right to threaten an actor because he didn't like the story. It's not your right to lie. It's your right, but you're a prick if you do. Don't do this.
I think it's
but
not.
Something else.
I don't think it is a right. I believe we have laws against those kinds of things.
I meant it's a right in terms of the idea of the freedom of speech, etc. I mean,
right.
Yes, I don't mean it's a right in terms of...
You have the right to talk shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't threaten someone.
It's so tacky. It's just like, it shows a lot more about you than anything else. But it is kind of bizarre how that game has been so polarizing. But it does bring up a big question to me. And just I don't know. They're just people are just getting crazier and crazier.
But it sort of goes a step further than that, because I think to myself, all right, I get you're in some way deranged to believe that this thing that she plays a role in it for real, but you are holding a piece of plastic with buttons on it and these thumb-related joysticks. There has to be a point where you start to separate the idea that this is an otherworldly, godlike gift that you've been given, and it's just a creation. There has to be that. And you see, like, for example, you see different actors in other realms and other scopes that have played a bad guy or have played someone, an anti-hero or whatever on a TV show, and them getting assaulted or them getting threatened or them getting all this stuff given to them in public, And it's sort of, really?
This brings up a good subject. It's like we do that as human beings. It's like I even see it in myself. It's like we do this thing where we like something so much that we just identify with it. It's literally identify with it, and it's really remarkable that you can just see something and then you start to attach yourself to it.
Right.
Fascinating, isn't it? Right?
It is disturbing, I'd say, but
No, but we all do it. This is the thing. We're all doing it, right? And it just made it just I just that just came to my head right now because this has been a topic I've been kind of paying attention to a lot. Just this kind of behavior, and it's like, yeah, it's bizarre when you think about it, where we just identify with things, sports teams, nations, ethnicities, but even things that are created, like, yeah, books, music, artists. We just seem to do this thing where it's like we appreciate it, but then we go on another level where we start to attach ourselves to it, and that's where the unhealthy part comes. The question is, I'm asking myself, is this getting worse?
and I think that's a valid question to ask. I think the other curiosity with that happens to be when you people often make the comparison and go, the only reason you feel like it's getting worse now is because of the exposure that we have to it. The fact that we hear about these threats, the fact that we hear about these incensed responses, the fact that people are able to mobilize and get together to come up with a petition online, etc. And it's whether or not that did or did not in actual fact happen beforehand. And that's very hard to quantify and understand.
Yeah, this is why I asked: is it getting worse, or is it just because of the proliferation of information right now? Is it just because of just getting more information?
It may well be.
It might probably. It's probably. I would think it's probably more of that. But sometimes it kind of blows my mind in terms of what people are outraged about.
Right.
That makes me want to question that. I was like, this is what makes me ask that question.
Right. And I mean, I still want to get The Last of Us 2.
I feel like I should play the first one.
You should. It's a continuation.
Yeah, because I feel like if I'm jumping into it, the second one, I'm not gonna have the same. Well, obviously, I'm not gonna. It's gonna be hard for me to follow the story and be as immersed in it because I don't want to wear these characters.
It's the investment. It's the investment. It's like you talking about Homeland. If you go into Homeland on season 2, you missed out on the first 12 hours worth of season 1, and that makes a difference.
So I figure when the PS5 comes out, I'll probably be able to buy it 2 years later because I won't be able to buy it anywhere for a while. So after that, I'll be able to invest some time into it.
It extends to what we were speaking about with regards to films and other projects that last the test of time. I played The Last of Us 4 or 5 years after it came out.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing too, though. Playing it might be hard to get into it because visually it might be so outdated.
I mean, you say that, but then again, one of the biggest trends of the past few years has been retro gaming.
True. I haven't.
The idea of your pixelate.
I haven't got into retro gaming, to be honest, myself.
I haven't, but I know that it has become extremely popular again.
But aren't those just like, when you say retro gaming, are you talking about remakes of retro, like two?
No, I'm talking about current games on things like a smartphone or on even more sophisticated devices like a Nintendo Switch or a PS4, which have a simplified feel and a very simple way that the game is played. Kind of harkening back to your classic Mario versions whereby you jump and you hit a brick, the platform type games.
It's a classic platformer kind of type games.
Simple graphics, simple gameplay, good game, because it falls into those categories. And I think the reason why a game like The Last of Us, etc., will still stand up if you play it a few years from now for the first time is because it's a well-told story.
Right.
Unless, of course, you're one of those crazy fans that thinks it wasn't a well-told story, in which case I guess I'll be hearing from you.
I'm just kidding. just I would love to see those letters. I'm curious to know what exactly is going on.
I mean, yeah, in no way do I want to belittle what this lady is experiencing and what other people of a similar ilk have gone through with regards to the way people react. But I am curious as to how they structure it. You know, how dare you? What?
I'm like I said, I'm reserving judgment because I think with these things, it's just those kinds of extremes are just a small percentage of the audience, and you're gonna always find those people.
It's the loud few.
It's a loud few, I know, but you don't want it to cloud. I mean, if you want to talk about this game and this actress and what she's probably getting all the heat from just the people who just didn't like the story and where it was taken. Like I said, I think not to give I don't think I'm giving too much away here where it's like, you're not even playing as the main character from the first one, right?
No, I don't think you are.
Yeah, and I think there was like they were mad, people were pissed off about that. And the fact that it's a woman too, and then there's all that part, and there's all that stuff. So I'm just saying, it's like, man, it's like these guys just need to calm down. I get it. I get it when you're really into something, um and maybe you've seen it, you've seen the follow up of it not really treated well. But I don't know. I haven't played the game.
Right.
I wish I can say.
Fair enough.
Just wish I can talk more about. I wish I can dive into it more, but until I play it, we'll have to do this podcast a year, another follow up to this after I played it. God, I hope I've beaten Metal Gear by that point.
We'll soon.
By the way, speaking of game remakes, Resident Evil 2, spectacular.
I don't think I ever played it.
You never played it?
No.
Never played the original, right?
I think I played the original, but I never owned it, so I didn't play it that much.
Well, you know how I feel about reboots and remakes, but damn, this is it. And 3 too. They're really good.
Fantastic. Yeah. So what have you been watching lately?
What have I been watching? Oh, I just wrapped up watching The Naked Director. It's that one I told you about. It's about this Japanese porn director. It's set in the 80s. And it's a whole it's not a movie, it's an actual series, right? It's only in one season right now. But I thought it was I think it was a really interesting story. It's just this quirky show about this guy who just goes from a regular guy and he turns into a porn director. And you just see him getting to that whole world and then him going through it. But I think it's just really well done.
What's it on?
It's on Netflix.
Oh, it is on Netflix.
Yeah, it's a Netflix original show. It's Japanese, but it's a Netflix original show on Netflix. I don't know the whole history of it. I don't know where it originated from or what the production started from, but it's a Netflix original, but it's entirely set in mostly it's entirely Japanese. You can just tell it's not done by an American.
Right.
It's not done from an American side. It's done from a Japanese production, Japanese writers and all that stuff. But I really enjoyed it. It's got a lot of interesting characters, and the story is just. I think maybe the last two episodes, but I enjoyed it for the most part.
Cool. Yeah, have you ever seen I had never seen the former versions, but have you ever seen Unsolved Mysteries?
I just saw that come up after I finished watching The Naked Director, and then I'm like, oh, so they're bringing back Unsolved Mysteries. I used to watch that show back in the
day. I never saw it.
Always fucking creeped the hell out of me. Like, especially when that damn theme song started playing in the beginning too. Oh my.
Yeah, I never saw the originals.
Oh, you never saw the originals?
No, I've seen I've seen 2 of the Netflix show. And It's done well. It's done interestingly. Um, I don't know whether I'll continue or not. Like, it's an interesting show. Um, but yeah,
Are you buying any of the scenarios that they're talking about?
yeah, yeah, they seem plausible. Like the first one speaks about a man that went missing, and then he was discovered. And it was presumed to be a suicide, but nothing adds up in terms of it having been that way. So, for example, the forensic examiners left the case undetermined while the police decided the case was closed as being a suicide.
Right.
And one of the many reasons why they ruled it to be undetermined was because of basically he had fallen through a racquetball court's base. There was a hotel and there's a parking lot, and he had fallen through, presumably from the top of the hotel, through the racquetball court floor, and then through the bottom of that room there. And so he was discovered with a variety of fractures which weren't conducive to him being able to do it himself and the fall. Not just that, there were also a bunch of items that he had on his person, such as a cell phone, such as some glasses, etc., that remained intact. Now, if he had done that, or even if he were thrown,
Right.
they wouldn't remain intact. Things would shatter, things would break, things would get tarnished. So it's interesting. I'll see where it goes. My girlfriend also put on this other show, which was more disturbing stuff, which was Athlete A. Have you heard of that one?
Which one?
Athlete A.
Athlete A. No. Oh, that's. Wait. I've seen it. Yeah, but I don't know what it's about.
The Larry Nassar stuff.
Not familiar with it.
Basically the USA gymnastics doctor that abused his athletes.
Oh yeah, this is he's the guy. This happened not too long ago, right?
I think he was convicted within the past 2 years.
Yeah, this was not too long ago. Yeah.
So it's about that, and it's about how they were trying their best to bring attention to what was going on, and then an internal review somehow didn't escalate it to the police.
What's that about?
I mean, basically, it's the whole argument of company versus people's rights. You know, if we don't report it, didn't happen, we can continue as normal. Everything's fine. If we do report it, scandal, everything shuts down, blah, blah, blah.
There's so many.
Now, bear in mind, he's been convicted, so on that part, we're completely scot-free in what we say. But I'm going to say allegedly in the way that it was handled. Allegedly. But everything adds up to be that.
So many of these things, it's like I wouldn't believe. Probably a few years ago, I wouldn't have believed many of these things, many of these conspiracy things. But from everything I've seen recently, it's starting to make me rethink a lot of things. For example, what I recently started watching was Who Shot Malcolm X.
Okay.
And it just brings up some certain things that, like, you know, that makes me start to question now the common narrative, right, about it all. I'm not saying 100%. I agree with it, but it makes me start to question the common narrative that we have with it.
Right. I don't know how much I would equate that though with stuff like the Larry Nassar stuff and Athlete A and all these other things. I wouldn't call those conspiracies because those seem pretty transparent. But I think that it is important to have a healthy amount of skepticism with regards to certain things if things don't add up.
Yeah.
It's just like we've been talking for a long time about this, and I'm sure the world has as well, about the whole Epstein thing and all that. And now you got how do you pronounce her name? Is it Ghislaine?
Ghislaine.
Let's just call
it's not even spelled. I'm not sure what the origins of the name. It's not even when you when you even read it, it doesn't even sound like that.
But the whole idea that now with her going under, there might be stuff to do with the royal family in England and da 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 da.
Oh God!
Yeah.
Don't get me started. Please don't get me started on that. Well, I mean, I think we don't want to veer off too much here, but with her, it's like you got to pay close attention to see what happens there because there's a lot going on there.
Right.
There's a lot going on there, right? Because she was just as accountable as he was, right?
Well, and then there's also, I think there was some things to do with Trump saying how he didn't really know her and all these other things. And then it's like, photo. No, I barely know the woman, never met the woman. Yeah, of course you don't. Yep, I believe you.
Like I said, I don't want to veer off into that tangent, but keep an eye out on that whole case because it's going to be, whatever happens will be very eye-opening. And it kind of shows in the whole Prince Andrew thing. It's like, to me, it's like, I always ask myself, if that was just a regular guy, would he even be in jail at this point?
Oh, if it was just a normal person right now, I'm sure the UK government would have kicked him out. He would have been extradited right away. Boom, deal with him.
No. So you know what? I don't even have to go that far down. Let's just say if he wasn't essentially part of the royal family, he was just maybe another famous person. Would he be in jail by now? I think he would. If he wasn't part of the royal family, he would have been in jail by now, or at least, on a sketch of a trial.
The likelihood of it is far greater if he wasn't part of the royal family. Yeah.
It's just very telling when it comes to all of that.
Yeah. So, what I was going to say is, when are we going to see? And I'm involving our audience as well. When am I going to get these screenplays?
That's a good question. And all I can see is when I see them, you'll see them. This is as good as it gets.
All right, because what people don't really understand, what the audience doesn't really know,
because I can't show it to you if it's not on the screen somewhere or on the piece of paper.
What people don't understand is Bola's very talented,
but he isn't
undisciplined. That's what he's trying to say. Undisciplined.
I didn't say it.
Oh, don't worry. They will come. Thanks for putting me on the spot in front of the whole world there.
Broken English Productions. Well, Broken English Films Productions. We're always trying to make sure that we get as many things there as possible. And also, as you know, we're doing this in a recorded form. This isn't live. So if you want me to take that out, I can take that out.
It's gold.
We only produce gold.
So when these things are finally written, there's a reference to them somewhere out here.
Precisely. In history, there'll be this mark there.
This will be the start of the Wikipedia article on the production side of it.
Precisely. Because the thing is as well, I want to start, because the things you've told me, and again, I'm not getting into any depth in terms of what you are working on, which sounds pretty fucking good, but I'm not going to get into it. But I want to get into the whole thing of designing the material and actually designing the shots, because I've been watching a lot in terms of how they do car chases and some of the classic things there, and the amount of work in order to coordinate that and make that run smoothly.
Yeah. Yes.
And we're very capable with that.
So it's just all about...
Yeah, precisely. But it all starts with a piece of paper with words on it, which you can tell someone how appalled and how upset you are with it by just basically threatening their lives.
I can't wait to get that. I can't wait to be that famous. Or somebody's thinking about stabbing me after watching a film I made or whatever.
I don't aspire to ever
be. I think that's when you know you made it.
My standards and your standards seem to be very, very different. If your standard happens to be, I know I've made it, not when I've done something I'm proud of and it's gotten some accolades or anything like that.
When the viewer's contemplating your murder, I think you made it.
I mean, again, different strokes for different folks. Whatever you need for it to be your sense of accomplishment, such as being threatened to be stabbed.
The Last of Us Part 3, starring Bizzy Bone and Daniel Day-Lewis.
Bring him out of retirement.
Yeah, wow.
Have you listened to Mike Snow yet?
No, because I have to listen to my cousin's album. Actually, he just called me during the podcast. Actually, so I have to listen to his podcast, his album first before I listen to Mike Snow.
Is this the Afrobeat one?
Yeah. So he's got another album coming out, and he wants me to listen to his album, and see if any ideas come for videos or something like that.
Fantastic.
I'll get to it after.
All right. No, I think you'll like it, or maybe you'll like it. It's no Bizzy Bone. It's no Bizzy Bone.
No.
And again, please, Bizzy, please don't email us or give us any harassment. We're not teasing you.
If you're listening, Bizzy Bone, we would like to have you on an episode of the podcast to talk about your favorite films.
And you can say the words East 99 as many times as you want.
Yeah.
It'll just be Boys in the Hood from 1 to 4. Probably some obscure like, things, and I mean a couple of them more probably won't be even a movie.
I think that Bizzy Bone's probably a big fan of Swedish art house cinema.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking he was probably more into Norwegian slasher films.
No. How could you be so off to say he'd be into Norwegian slasher films? I mean, are you even thinking about this?
Yeah, I didn't put much thought into that. I just
No.
On a whim there.
That is classic lazy bone.
Not busy, lazy.
He probably liked the Human Centipede. I think he'll be into that.
No, I believe that was his name Fleshbone or Flesh and Bone?
I don't know. Was he part of Bones? I can't remember the other dudes.
No, he was part of the greater group. Because there was Bone Thugs and Harmony, and then it escapes me now. But there was Bone Thugs, and then there was I think it was Fleshbone or Flesh and Bone, and then
man, I guess they must have taken the flesh off those bones, huh? See what I did there? Okay, and then on that note, folks, we thank you again for listening or watching this podcast. We've enjoyed talking about all these topics, and I hope you guys have too. And as you know, plenty more to come.
And
no, go ahead.
If you have any input to give us on what you think of the podcast, frankly, we're not interested. So thank you for it. Please reserve it.
With that being said, remember to take off the comments.
No, but in all seriousness, we hope you're enjoying this, and we are going to continue to do this and improve this. Again, Bola and I haven't been doing the podcasting part very long. We've been doing stuff to do with Broken English Films for very long, but you'll see a lot of big changes fast, and hopefully you enjoy them. Stay tuned to the website, stay tuned to the social media channels, and without further ado...
And stay tuned. Definitely stay tuned for the videos that we're going to be creating.
Lots of productions to come. 2021, 2022, and every year after. Be there. We'll keep you happy, at least for a good 10 minutes if you're 2 hour long.
Until the death threats come. And on that note, sayonara, folks.
Hasta luego.